Good morning. Welcome to the No Way Jose podcast. This is the morning dump. It's Wednesday, July 22nd. I'm your host, Jose Galison, and this is the kitty of the day, Jeff, Mr. Jefferson himself, the fat fuck of the house, the handsome homie. He's a favorite of the show. Big old Jeff, one of the few fuzzy fellas in this house, one of two. He's actually a Sphinx outcross. We did an outcross. It's good for the genetics to occasionally do outcrosses every now and then. He's actually more Sphinx than he is normal domestic, but he still has the hair. But with that, if you guys like this show, if you like my hot takes Monday through Friday, typically around 11 a.m. Eastern, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell for notifications. That way you can see when we're going live and when we're dropping new videos. Or if you just want to see the kitties, they'll do it too. With that, we'll see you in the show.
Beautiful thing, right now.
Rise and shine, it's a beautiful day.
I am alright.
About a third of the building has been blown away.
This is the bridge to white lights.
Our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad.
It's crazy evil.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a good one. It's Wednesday, hump day, almost through the week. We have plenty for you guys today, plenty to go through. Starting off the show, as we always do, we start off with Icebreaker Content. Today is no exception. There was a viral tranny video from yesterday with misgendering. Figured we'd have a little bit of fun with that. And also give you a little bit of my take, or at least the little bit of take I'm willing to give on the Odyssey. We talked about that a lot last night on Already Dead. And then we will get into the foreign policy roundup, get into what's going on in the world of war. And then we will get into Kirkin Off, is what we're calling that, the first titled segment, digging into a few more things in the Kirk stuff. I know the trial's over, but there's a few lingering things. That's the word I was reaching for, lingering. There's a few lingering things I want to touch. So we'll dig into that and kind of recap a few things, dig into some new stuff we haven't touched on here before. So I think after that, we probably will have a good little while that we'll be free of Kirk content, because I think we have till September to the next trial. So I imagine, I don't know how much content Candace can churn out of this, but I think we'll get a little bit of a lull. And then we will get into spook stuff, kind of a grab bag of spook-related stories, talking about Rubio, essentially targeting left-wing groups. We'll kind of get into the details of what exactly does that mean. Updates on the J6 bombing, the Blaze story, fallout, the lawsuit happening there. I've seen someone call it Gate. I thought that was pretty clever. And another little story there. A couple just kind of spook grab bags. And then we will continue our reading of The Secret History of Polymarket, the piece written by Whitney Webb. So we'll keep digging through that. So if you guys you're still digging it, let me know. I don't think we'll end up reading the entire piece. It's a bit of a behemoth, but I want to dig into it a little bit with you guys. So we'll see how many parts we get into it before it loses our attention. But with that, if you're new here, a little bit of a reminder what this thing is. This is a live stream, kind of an interactive experience. Call this an info dump format, just kind of throwing stuff at the wall, a bunch of bookmarks on Twitter, articles here and there, just kind of thrown together, working through concepts together in real time. Every now and then, some of the stuff is processed information that I've worked through before, but a lot of time it's stuff we're working through together. I know most of you don't actually end up showing up for the live experience. Most of you guys catch it later, so I do accommodate people who enjoy it that way, and I put timestamps so that way you guys can jump around from topic to topic and you can avoid the chat banter. Now, for those who are here for the live experience, I do like to remind you guys get at least one good morning. I try to give you at least one good morning. After that, you got to catch my interest or catch my wallet. You can super chat over here. That is one way to support the show. And if you want another way to support the show and get perks up here in the top left-hand corner, you got a QR code, or you can go to patreon.com/nowayjose2020, and you get a number of different perks for your support there, which we will go through at the end of the show. With that, let's go ahead and get into some Icebreaker content, talk a little bit about, I guess, what little bit of commentary I'm willing to provide for the Odyssey, because I know that's what everybody's all worked up about. Maybe one of these days I'll watch it, and then I'll have more commentary. I probably won't even ever watch it, but I thought this was particularly funny, appropriate for this portion of the show. Here is kind of this round table of these hoity-toity Hollywood types talking about why Zendaya was the perfect casting for Athena. And then we have Robert Pattinson being an absolute king, kind of being every one of us, like totally me type vibes. So you'll see. Here you go. Enjoy.
Perfect casting, because she truly is a goddess. What about her do you think made her the perfect Athena?
She's divine.
Divine and powerful. She really holds the screen. She's pretty strong like that.
Yeah, and
You can see the top left-hand corner too. The reaction, if you missed it, in the top left-hand corner here, that is Robert Pattinson's reaction when the question was initially asked. Now, I don't get into these behind-the-scenes stuff. I don't know, this is kind of like what my For You, unfortunately, has become filled with the new Twitter update, this sort of shit. But I do get the vibes they are chummy. That is the impression I get between Robert Pattinson and Zendaya. So maybe it's just kind of they have a ribbing sort of thing. But also at the same time, let's be fucking real. Zendaya, Athena, are we really saying that's perfect casting? I'm not saying it's awful casting per se. It's nowhere near the idea of what was the other one? They casted Lupita Nyong'o as the idea of conventional beauty in Greece, during that era. Helen of Troy seems. And I'm someone who'll defend there are, contexts in which Lupita can be considered beautiful or pretty or exotic or whatever. There are certain characters one may characterize as beautiful that you could cast Lupita Nyong'o for. But the idea of conventional beauty as a Mediterranean woman, I think you missed the mark a little bit with a sub-Saharan woman with a very unique look. It's a little bit missing the mark, and obviously I don't think Zendaya is not quite that abhorrent of a casting, whatever, but the idea that she somehow captures Athena's what one would surmise Athena, what is it, the god? She's a war god, right? I don't think she's a little bit complicated. She's not exactly a goddess of one thing, but it's kind of wisdom, war. It's from my recollection of those gods, it's you have Athena, and then you have Ares, are the two main gods of war. And Ares is kind of the more bombastic, primal, barbaric, whereas Athena is more I guess would be the tactician, wisdom. There might be some aspects of what you would characterize her. So I would think it would be someone with poise, grace, power. Hell, even if we are going to stick to if you really do want to put a minority in there, because she doesn't look necessarily Greek either. I'm trying to think of I don't know, what would be a good one? I think maybe one that comes to mind, maybe a Zoe Saldana or something. I don't know. I know she's I've seen her in cast in certain roles where she comes off as pretty powerful and pretty intense. I know for Zendaya's she's very. I'm not one of these people who go on she's ugly. I think she's generally pretty in the way that if I saw her in real life, I generally a generally pretty woman. I had nothing bad to say about her, but the idea that everyone's supposed to be oh my god, she's so beautiful and so powerful. It's what is this game we're playing? What are we doing here? She's a pretty average woman. She seems perhaps she's a nice lady, but this idea that she's the picture of power, beauty, grace. Like, what are we doing here? And Robert Pattinson really is us here. And in this game of pretending, that we're pretending something else is happening here, apparently there's been another misgendering occasion that has achieved virality. Funny enough, I saw this on Twitter yesterday, then my wife was actually showing me this in the car this morning, and then it was in my feed again this morning, so I was like, I guess it's reached viral enough level. It is at slop. It has reached, beyond slop containment. So I figured, hey, well, let's cover it here. Here is this viral interaction. I have not really watched. I heard my wife sort of watching it next to me. Didn't really get a good look at it. But here is a trans Florida student who was arrested after an explosive meltdown over misgendering. So here you go.
Stop misgendering me!
What's the problem?
Why do you let those kids get away with this? They are not supposed to be here!
If you don't lower your voice, I am going to put handcuffs on you and I'm going to take you to a Baker Act facility. You lower your voice.
Try it.
Are you threatening me? Can we get another unit to deal with Jay Lee here? He is having a breakdown.
Say! Just say the right pronoun!
What'd you say?
The funny thing is, like, if you're one of the bizarre people, listening to this on audio for what is obviously a visual thing, all he has is like he's literally wearing like fucking basketball shorts, a shitty fucking long sleeve band tee of some sort, and then he's got like a really shitty fucking like worse than most like obnoxious weave you can imagine. Like the colored like just a blue weird kind of bob wig thing. So, and like that's supposed to be like, oh, like my wife was just next to me, was like, this guy, I didn't even realize, it took me a while to figure out what was going on here, because I didn't even pick up the cues that this is someone upset about, that they are transgender, or that they're upset about the pronoun or whatever. And with the screeching, it is kind of hard to make out. So let's keep going.
Get down on the ground right now.
No!
You're about to get sprayed.
No!
Get down on the ground right now.
Leave me alone!
I can come in there.
Leave me alone, please!
Okay, are you going to calm down?
I want to be away from him.
It's too late now. It's too late now. He's going to be taken away.
By the way, that is he, whatever, keeps screeching. So correcting the gendering.
It's taken.
I just want to get away from him.
So it keeps doing the what you can see is the cop keeps doing this he and keeps intentionally. I would actually, while I do think you shouldn't really have to, but if you're in a conflict resolution sort of situation, what are you doing? Like, why are you, like, you've realized what they're upset about. Like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'd play their stupid fucking game to whatever degree I think it may reduce the tension or whatever. I mean, obviously this person is a loon and probably looking for issues. So, but either way, I don't really see the purpose of, like, it almost feels like they're going out of their way at this point.
Stop misgendering me! Just say she!
Please step in. Watch your head.
Do not push me.
All right, I want to chat. Let's look over at let's go back to the main tweet here. Let's go look at the post, see if I can find the article, because I'm kind of curious.
What's the problem?
Looks like they don't actually have the article attached. Well, that's whack. I don't know why they wouldn't. I guess it's just a video. I wanted to see if I could find if this was a college student or a high school student. Either way, I actually kind of feel pretty sad after watching this. Like, this person kind of comes off as clearly pretty fucking deranged. So I don't know what's going on in their life, what sort of meds they're on, but I hope they figure their shit out. But yeah, this person here says this cop's a fucking idiot. He saw someone clearly deranged screaming at a mall and kept triggering them to satisfy his boomer SJW libtard, getting owned with facts and logic Ben Shapiro style fantasy. Yeah, that's kind of, I did get a little bit of these vibes. I didn't really understand the purpose of here. From my understanding, I believe they showed up to actually, there was like a stolen car or something. I was hoping the article would be connected there. We get a little more details, but yeah. But in other news associated with this, apparently Tennessee, which I know one of the, I don't know if you're in the chat, John Black. I know you're one of the boys, one of the Tennessee boys, Patreon boys. Apparently, a bill proposing the tracking of trannies in Tennessee has officially passed the State House, which, I mean, while I like to joke and I have my opinions, I gotta say that's pretty fucking wild. That's insane. So it's a pass the State House. I forget the sequence. I don't know if that's them saying that it still needs to go to the next one, to the next round of voting, or if that's their way of saying this is now going to be some sort of law. I have a hard time believing a bill like this would actually be able to go into effect. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. To be very clear, I'm opposed to such a bill. I will, it's hard not to lean into it and make jokes and be based, because it is to some degree somewhat hilarious. But the idea that we're going to grant the government the ability to track people based on some arbitrary thing that they themselves don't even seem to be able to determine on any given day sometimes seems a little ridiculous. So I don't know. I mean, maybe there's more fine print to this bill that makes it a little bit less ridiculous, but either way, that is something happening in over in Tennessee. John Black, if you're in the chat, I don't know if you know more about this. I know this is where you're at. You're involved in the political game a little bit. Maybe you have some info for us. But with that, let's roll through the chat, say some good morning, say our hellos, and then we'll get into foreign policy. Good morning, OG Matzo Balls. Dom33 says, damn, we on time today. Yes, we are on time for sure. Good morning, Murder, Death, Kills. Good morning, Jose and Cats. Good morning. Oxtail says, what's up, sexy gay nerds? What's up? Good morning to you. Tom asks about, so is the no hair a recessive trait? Is it more complicated? Does Jeff make bald kitties or a mix of both? Well, his nuts are cut off, but if he did, I think he's 3/4. He would probably put off a litter that had, I think he would put off a litter that had either half or mostly hair or something like that. I've done the Punnett Square shit before. I forget how many. It takes what is it? It's takes 2 generations to get. I think you get hair to a Sphinx. You get all hair in the first litter. One of those kittens you breed to a Sphinx, you'll get half and half. And then Jeff would have been one of the kittens from one of those litters. So I actually think he'd probably put off 3/4 or something like that. I don't know. It is a little bit more confusing, because I mean, I know we were all taught the little Punnett Square that has just the it's just dominant and recessive, but I mean that's just tracking what an allele, if I'm remembering my genetics stuff better. But it's one allele, and when it comes to traits, a lot of times, most of the time, there's a horde of alleles that go into it. So I don't know if the no hair is just one gene, but that's the track to get a cat with no hair. But yeah, I think he would put off if he did have babies with a Sphinx, I think he would have either half and half, or he'd put or 3/4 Sphinx, and I forget, whatever. But yeah, I think it's slightly more complicated, but it's basically, you can kind of understand it fairly well with a dominant recessive sort of understanding. But yeah, it is some sort of mix. It's not just bald kitties, that's for sure. So yeah. Good morning, Bug Fights. Good morning. Got kidney stones still whooping your ass. Well, hope that gets better. Sorry to hear, brother. Let's keep going. Good morning, Mr. Wokerite. Good morning. What else we got? Good morning, Gotis. It's good morning from my root. No service, sadly. Hit the like button. Bummer. Good morning, Hotep Beavis. Good morning. St. Hollywood is Ray L. Inverts. I don't know. I think I'm missing it. Is Ray L. Invert? Okay. I think I'm missing what you're putting down there, but okay. What else we got here? Good morning, user chat heads. I get to finally watch the show, usually only audio. Hell yeah, brother. We got commentary on Zendaya. Zendaya's a dude, bro. I'm not saying she is. I think it's ridiculous. I always get shade for being she is generally attractive. She's someone that you walked by in a supermarket, like you probably wouldn't even glance at to be like, ooh, like you'd probably glance at, and like she's generally attractive in the way that like she's not ugly. Like I don't think she's ugly. Like I think a lot of people like to overplay it, say she's ugly. She's a generally pretty woman. Like all this, like everyone acts like she's like the hottest thing ever. That's ridiculous. So, good morning, matzo balls. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, North Side. Good morning. Good morning. Tom says, I think the cop's legit confused. And to be fair, maybe he was confused. It's kind of hard to say. Either way, obviously, it's the tranny who is completely at fault here. I just think perhaps the cop was maybe could have used a little bit better awareness, maybe a little bit better conflict resolution. But I don't think anything particularly bad happened there. So it's not really. It's kind of, nitpicking somewhat. But yeah, I don't know. It just seemed a little ridiculous. Did seem like he was kind of intentionally trying to aggravate him there by the end. Good morning, John Black, saying my misgendering QT was by far the best. I didn't see that one. Good morning to you, though. What else we see? Good morning, Chuck Bam. Telling you guys, UFOs over Michigan breaking. You heard it here first. Good morning, aggressively agreeing. Says tracking trans individuals is just another way for the government to track their CIA psyops without sounding the alarm. Yeah, was it like tagged and traced straight from market or straight from birth to table or whatever? Like just completely, they know everything about it. That's where they're at. Yeah, I guess that is kind of that elevates their whole program to kill game, doesn't it? Good morning, Shannon Jones. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Tara Jackson with gold coins, a floating heart, and another floating heart. They have these gems thing. I don't quite understand. Feel free, anyone in the chat, to sound off and explain these. I know I recently noticed on my YouTube I have these like gems and gifts and shit. I have no idea. Like, and they show up as like super chats on my end, and I think for you guys as well. I guess I just don't quite get them. Like, we all have this like weird like gems stuff now, like currency, made up YouTube currency. So I'm like, does that currency convert to like actual currency, or is this some sort of like whose line is it anyway thing where we're just sharing gifts and you're like, here's a big kissy face, Mr. Streamer? Like, I guess I don't get it. Like, I don't really like. What is it just that like now I have more of those gems and I can buy the kissy faces or this emoji or whatever the weird fucking things that I send to. I'm just confused. If anyone wants to sound off, I don't know what YouTube's doing there. So. Yeah, Tara says, I don't know, I figured you might not either, and we're just trying it out like I did recently on some stream, like, what is this? Am I giving this guy money? Like, I don't know what's going on here. So, all right, before we get into foreign policy, here's Hotep explaining a little bit more what he was getting at. So, all right, because I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? IS for Israel, so is, IS, he's saying equals ISIS / feminine, Ra, the sun god, says Ra, masculine. Then L, god / elite / ruling class. This is invert troons, women who look like men who look like women, Israelites. Okay, all right. Oh, maybe a bit of a stretch, but I get where you're going with there. It's the Star of Israel's masculine triangle on top, feminine triangle, troon gods. Yeah, I've seen the like as above, so below played into with the Star of David thing, yeah. All right. You guys got more flowing in. Here we go. John Black says the Tennessee bill is a requisition of a report from the Tennessee Department of Health on gender affirming care, transitioning and detransitioning is a requisition of a report. Requisition. I think is that like a what does that mean? A request, like a legal request? Let me make sure. Requisition. Just be sure I'm not being retarded here. An official order laying claim to the use of property materials. Okay, so this is Tennessee. God, what the fuck? Sorry, so they're requesting from the Tennessee Department of Health a report from them. Okay, I mean, is this like reports on people they've? Okay, I guess I feel like there's more specifics to be fleshed out there. Generally, it sounds like I'm pretty vehemently against this, although I will admit it is pretty funny. Here we go. Here's more gems. Silver star. I guess I didn't quite earn it. A gold star. Still don't understand these gems situation here. You got John Black with 10 gems with a happy poop. Okay, we're having fun with gems. Eventually, everyone will spend their gems. I have no idea if I even should be reading these. They feel they're pretty nonsensical, but it's like, is this money? I don't know what this is. But thanks for contributing your gems. Now I can send silver stars and kissy faces and poopy things over to other creators. All right, let's get into foreign policy. Let's jump right in. What we talked about yesterday, the Yemen stuff resurfacing and but it was contained. It was a Saudi Arabia Yemen thing. It wasn't kind of part of this broader Iran thing. And of course, Trump had to force making it being now part of a broader thing. So just kind of forcing the issue, which is great, right? Just wonderful. So we got Trump suggesting he could restart the Yemen bombing campaign in response to the Red Sea blockade. Trump yesterday suggested he could restart a bombing campaign in Yemen in response to the Houthis, officially known as Ansar Allah, enforcing a blockade on the Red Sea. Trump's comments came after Ansar Allah announced a maritime blockade on Saudi Arabia, which came a week after the Saudis bombed Yemen's Sana'a airport to prevent the landing of a plane carrying a Yemeni delegation from Iran to enforce its long-standing blockade on the country that was eased under a 2022 ceasefire deal but never fully lifted. Ansar Allah has already warned shipping companies against using Saudi ports, and Reuters reported that 2 oil tankers loaded with Saudi crude bound for China and India made U-turns in the Red Sea, heading for the Suez Canal instead of attempting to cross the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. That's the one I always struggle with. Yemeni media reported that a total of 6 ships returned around following the warning. For his part, Trump downplayed the blockade, claiming it hasn't started yet. So far, it hasn't happened. Might happen, but we take care of things, Trump told reporters while meeting with Lebanese President Joseph Aoun in the Oval Office. If something like that happens, we take care of it. We've done that with the Houthis before, and we haven't heard from them in a while since we did what we did originally. So talking tough, which if anyone has any recollection of the Yemen ordeal, that's not how that went down. Trump launched a bombing campaign in Yemen on March 15, 2025, a few days after Ansar Allah announced it was renewing its blockade of Israeli-linked shipping in the Red Sea in response to Israel violating the January 2025 Gaza ceasefire deal by imposing a full blockade on the Palestinian territory. The U.S. bombing campaign lasted about a month and a half and involved major civilian casualties, including the bombing of the Ras Isa fuel port in Hodeidah, which killed 84 people, all civilians, according to the monitoring group Air Wars. I think that's the one that was a double tap too, if I recall correctly. A few days after the strike, the U.S. bombed a migrant detention facility in Sada, killing 68 African migrants. So they literally bombed a detention center. So this is like migrants, so these are people that were probably being deported or maybe being processed for importing. I don't know how whatever their system is over there, but either way, they're in a detention facility. So I'd say it's more likely they're probably getting booted out than some sort of coming in. But yeah, so they literally basically bombed a bunch of random people that weren't even from that country and were being kicked out. So it's just a bizarre move. Air Wars recorded more than 250 civilian deaths in Yemen as a result of the bombing campaign, which ended on May 6th with a ceasefire between the U.S. and Ansar Allah, as the U.S. failed to end the blockade on Israeli-linked shipping and the Yemeni missile and drone attacks on Israel that began after Israel restarted its full-scale bombing campaign in Gaza. Biden also conducted a bombing campaign against Ansar Allah that failed to stop the blockade on Israeli shipping that lasted from January 2024 to January 2025 until the Gaza ceasefire deal halted the Yemeni attacks. So, and for those aren't aware of the history, the U.S. also backed a brutal Saudi UAE war against Ansar Allah from 2015 until the ceasefire in 2022, which killed hundreds of thousands of Yemenis, including many children who starved to death under a blockade but failed at reinstalling the government of former Yemeni President Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi, who died in Riyadh earlier this year. So hopefully he doesn't. Hopefully he learned his lesson from the last go-around, and we don't need to aggravate this situation even further. Right now, the blockade from Yemen is supposedly only going to apply to things specifically going to or from Saudi, which is a sizable amount of the oil. But, I mean, hey, it kind of is one of those things that is what it is. Functionally, realistically, we can't really do shit about it. We've tried to do shit about it before, so it didn't work. We've got another name, another that we've identified, another one of the individuals who was killed over in Iraq. So, U.S. identified soldier killed in Iraq as 30-year-old father from North Carolina. Military on Tuesday identified the Army soldier who was killed in Iraq on Saturday as Sergeant Michael Emmanuel Swinton, 30-year-old father from North Carolina, the fourth U.S. service member to be killed in the Iran war. Since Friday, CENTCOM said that Swinton was killed during a controlled demolition of unexploded ordnance from an Iranian attack drone in Erbil, Iraq. U.S. official told the New York Times that Swinton was not involved in the actual detonation, but was hit by flying debris from the blast. He leaves behind a 6-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. I will never recover from this. Swinton's wife, Mia Gonzalez Swinton, wrote on Facebook, "We had so many plans for when you got back. I'm sick to my stomach." So awful. Military has also identified 2 soldiers. We talked about them yesterday. Isabella Gonzalez, 19, just absolutely tragic, just awful. And then even, somewhat similar, I mean, also basically just as sad, First Lieutenant James Feehan, or Tyler Feehan, he was 25, so he was, butter bar, baby in the military, just got out of college, probably just got out of training, and here you go. Trump on Tuesday appeared to downplay the deaths in the Iran war by sharing statistics of U.S. wars with much higher U.S. casualty rates. President wrote, Afghanistan war, 20 years, 2,000 dead. Iraq War, 9 years, 4,600 dead. Vietnam War, 19 and 5 months, 50,220 dead. Korean War, 3 years and 1 month, 36,574 dead. Venezuela War, 1 day, 0 dead, which that's actually not true. I don't know where he's getting the 0 dead in Venezuela. I remember covering people did die in that. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know in what world you could possibly construe that 0 people died there. Like, they did a smash and grab, and there literally were, like, I think there were, like, Cuban forces that were killed, too. Like, I don't know where he's getting 0 dead. That's fucking retarded. Iran military conflict, 4 months, 18 dead. So, anyway, it kind of caught me off guard with the Venezuela one. That's kind of insane. I forget what the number was, but 0 is just absolutely astounding. Since Trump launched the war on February 28th, at least 18 soldiers have been killed, according to the U.S. military's official account. We talked yesterday in the New York Times. They were withholding info. They've killed about 3,500 Iranians, including more than 50 since the U.S. renewed strikes a week ago. In April, Iranian officials said nearly half of those were civilians, and including the 120 children killed in the Manab school, which absolutely tragic, which is, we talked about the other day, like, if you quantify, it basically is worse than our 9/11 for them. Absolutely insane. And then we have this report coming out kind of telling us exactly what we've already known for a while, but this is still the tact they're choosing, and lives are being lost for it, and essentially also our lives are getting worse for it. Prices are going up. Washington Post reported Monday night that a new U.S. intelligence assessment says that Iran's government is unlikely to feel a significant impact or change its negotiating position as a result of the U.S. airstrikes that have been hitting Iran. The report, which cited current and former U.S. officials, said that U.S. intelligence agencies have also concluded that Tehran and Washington are, for now, stuck in an indefinite limbo between peace and war, though there's been little peace lately as the U.S. has bombed Iran for 10 consecutive nights. Trump on Tuesday claimed that Iran desperately wants to hold talks for a deal, but there's no sign that Tehran is backing down on its core demands, and the idea of negotiating with the U.S. has become even more politically fraught for Iran's leadership following the collapse of the MOU and the renewed U.S. bombing campaign. There have been reports of Pakistan and other mediating countries attempting to salvage negotiations, something Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Baghi confirmed on Monday, but there has been no sign of progress. Iranian officials have also shown no sign of backing down on their core demands, which include Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz, which, let's be real, that's what's going to happen at the end of this. No matter how we want to, I mean, really there is, aside for some sort of insane paradigm-shifting situation, which even then I don't think would work. Like, if nukes entered the situation, I actually still think that, however this ended up finishing, unless they went full retard, just nuke, or something insane, which I doubt that would be the case. I still think likely it's going to end with Iran having It's just what makes the most sense. As I heard someone, I don't know who said it, but someone said it's for the same reasons that we control the strait, the Panama Strait or whatever, the Panama Canal. It's like, functionally, who the fuck else is like, what other, hegemon in the region? The idea that we're going to go across the world and that we're going to somehow control the Strait of Hormuz with all these opposing countries in that region, particularly Iran, it's just fantastical. All right, moving on. So yeah, it's not looking too great there. And then today, I think we're getting a vote on one of these mergers between the U.S. and Israeli military. So this is the House rule advances 2027 NDAA with section to integrate U.S. and Israeli militaries. So on Tuesday, they approved a procedural vote to advance the $1.15 trillion 2027 National Defense Authorization Act, which includes a section to further integrate the U.S. and Israeli militaries, a plan that Netanyahu has said was his idea. This is the whole, from aid to partnership thing he's pushing. The rule to allow floor debate and a vote on the NDAA and several pieces of legislation, a pass in a 214 to 211 vote, and a final vote of the House's version of the NDAA is expected to take place on Wednesday. The procedural step came after the House Rules Committee denied a vote on an amendment introduced by Massey to strip 219 from the bill. It says, unfortunately, the rule passed just now, and no debate or vote was allowed on Section 219, integration of U.S. military technology and supply chains with Israel's, Massey wrote next. The NDAA will receive a recorded vote tomorrow, that's today, with Section 219 in it. I'll vote no. So we are legitimately getting a recorded vote from these people, so keep that in mind. Somewhat interested to see how this works out. I mean, we've had quite the sea change on the Democrat side, and even then, if you're any sort of forward-thinking politician on the right, I struggle to think that you would think this would be a positive move for you going forward. Now, if you're someone near the end of your political career, obviously you may have a different calculation going on in your head. So we'll see where this goes. Ro Khanna, who has supported Massey's efforts, said that he will now fight to strip 219 in the conference between the House and Senate when the two chambers negotiate the final version of the NDAA. Massey and I have been fighting to stop the integration between our military and the Israeli military. It's shocking that this has to even be explained. It's about American sovereignty, he said. Yet yesterday, the Rules Committee found that Thomas Massey's amendment couldn't even get a vote in the House of Representatives. We do not even have the chance to vote in the House to stop the U.S. and Israel from co-producing weapons. We need to now fight to strip this amendment in the conference between the House and the Senate, he added. The Senate's version of NDAA also includes a provision to integrate the two militaries, but the sprawling legislation was blocked by Senate Democrats last week over Trump's war with Iran, which hasn't been authorized by Congress and has continued despite both chambers passing a concurrent war powers resolution directing the president to end the conflict. So, I mean, we've talked on this a number of times. I haven't seen any real movement of what's going on here. I mean, they have already, the Congress has essentially dictated that this is unconstitutional. They are not supposed to be doing this, yet we haven't seen any action, and yet they're still voting to advance these sort of things. So, I know we'll see where things go. Checking in on our greatest ally, not being much of an ally. Here's Dave DeCamp with an absolute banger of a tweet, and then we will get into the specifics of it. Here is... many people have seen this meme. I believe it's like Matthew McConaughey drinking a beer is what it usually is, shooting a little Uzi or whatever, saying, I'm not fucking dying for Israel. Well, here is, it looks like Dave DeCamp AI'd it and, swapped out the face for Bezalel Smotrich, and he's drinking a little kosher lager here and saying, I'm not fucking dying for Israel, which I go, well, what is this about? Well, let's jump into the piece. This is from Dave DeCamp, says the current situation is best. Smotrich says Israel has no interest in joining U.S. attacks on Iran. Any of you guys have more of a memory than like a goldfish, maybe like, wait, what? Isn't this what this is all fucking about? And yeah, Marco Rubio even basically said it like from the fucking jump, then had to like weirdly walk it back. So, but either way, it's obvious, and they've said it in many different ways, many different times. It's just kind of the thing. Smotrich on Tuesday said it was best for Israel to stay out of the current conflict between the U.S. and Iran, and as the U.S. continues bombing the Islamic Republic. and Iranian missiles and drones continue to target bases in Arab states across the region, but have so far spared Israel. The state of Israel has no interest in joining the contained confrontation between Iran and the United States. The current situation is the best one for us. The situation in which we get the Goy to do our fighting for us? Yeah, it's wonderful. Smotrich said at a conference marking the 2005 withdrawal of settlements from Gaza, where he and other Israeli officials pushed for the resettlement of the Palestinian territory. Now, just take a second, think about this whole conflict, and back up a little bit. Just think these different, how it's ebbed and flowed, and we've had these multiple attempts at negotiation or whatever, and it started out with Israel attacking, and it slowly became this thing where Israel was less involved and more us, and it's just funny that we had this MOU and this peace dial back, and then now here we are back in it and Israel not in it. So it just, from the big picture, it's just kind of funny how that whole switcheroo happened. So Smotrich made the comments after 4 U.S. soldiers were killed in the war, including 3 in an Iranian attack on a base in Jordan. Israel stayed out of the war since the U.S. renewed the bombing campaign, despite the fact, according to the official State Department rationale, the U.S. launched the conflict at the request of Israel. Smotrich said that Israel still sought regime change in Iran, something Netanyahu reportedly told Trump would happen if he launched the war. We must remember the ultimate goal of Israel, and not necessarily the United States, is to undermine and weaken the regime in Iran, to the point of overthrowing it, Smotrich said, according to Middle East Eye, adding that destroying Iran's economy is the best path toward that goal. You mean destroying millions and millions of lives? Yeah, great. Currently, inflation in Iran is at 85%, food inflation of over 134% in a total of 4 months. And the Iranian rial is trading an exchange of 1.9 million to the dollar, and it's going up, he said. Smotrich reaffirmed the current situation is good for us, and there's no point in pushing ourselves inward. Israeli newspaper Haaretz reported that while Israel hasn't been directly striking Iran, it has been supporting the war by providing the U.S. with intelligence and in other ways. Oh, isn't that great? This is a good little look, inside look at how this whole aid to partnership thing will work in the future. Oh, they'll be partners as we fight their wars, and they sit back in their little air-conditioned offices and send us over intelligence or whatever. The report said that Israel's less visible role was a blessing for Israelis, since it reduces the risk of casualties and allows daily life to continue largely as normal, without midnight sirens, trips to bomb shelters, or major disruptions. Isn't that just wonderful for you guys? And let's check in on Gaza. Israeli airstrike in Gaza kills family of 6 as they sleep. Isn't it wonderful that these guys, though, they don't have to worry about these little bomb shelters anymore or anything like that? It's just such a blessing for these guys. But yet they're dropping bombs on entire families as they're sleeping. They killed a man, his wife, and their 4 children in Gaza City. Health officials told Al Jazeera the strike hit the Al-Masri family home in the Sabra neighborhood in Gaza as they slept, killing Faras and Salsabil El-Masri and their 3 daughters and son. Just sad picture there. An older relative clearly holding what looks like clearly one of the children. I don't know who specifically that is, but that could be one of his grandchildren. So awful. So actually, yeah, the grandfather is one of the people quoted. So that might be the grandfather actually holding one of his grandchildren right there, which... I don't know. I'm getting older now. My oldest is 16, and I'm not that I'm rushing her to get married or anything, time soon or have kids, but I'm probably just something within the realm of a decade for having grandkids, and I know I'm super excited about it. And I don't know. I can't imagine seeing, I don't know, just kind of destruction of your legacy, everything you've built for, decades, almost half a century, but just awful. Since we were unable to save our grandchildren and children from the flames and devastation, around 5 or 6 people were martyred, most of them children and women, without mercy and without any prior warning, the grandfather of the children told Reuters. The IDF confirmed it was responsible for the strike, claiming without evidence that it targeted a Hamas member. Throughout its genocidal war, Israel has regularly targeted Hamas members as they were at home with their families, using an AI tracking system known as Where's Daddy, according to a report from 972 magazine. The al-Masri family was among 12 Palestinians massacred by the IDF in Gaza on Tuesday. Medics told Reuters that there were other attacks in Gaza City and 2 in central Gaza that killed 6 more people. So there were 12 people killed yesterday, 6 of which were an entire family. Well, not entire. I guess the entire immediate family. Gaza's health ministry sends daily update on Tuesday that recorded the Israeli killing of 9 Palestinians, an injury of 42 over the previous 24 hours. This brings up to 1,168 Palestinians killed since the ceasefire, the so-called ceasefire in October. Let's check in on Lebanon, see how that whole peace deal is working out for them. Here's a piece from Jason Ditz over at antiwar.com. Lebanese troops deployed a pilot zone immediately come under fire from Israelis. So the pilot zones being these areas that Israel had agreed to leave, no longer occupy, completely symbolic nonsense too. It's not even like really, spots that really matter all that much. And it's not looking like it's going so well. So as was reported yesterday, Lebanese troops entered the Lebanese town of Zatwar al-Garbiya as part of the agreed-upon pilot zone program with Israel and the United States. This program was to see Lebanese military forces take over a handful of municipalities in southern Lebanon, some of which were previously under Israeli occupation. Shortly after arriving in the town, the Lebanese military reported that their forces came under fire from Israeli forces in the area, though it appears there were no casualties as a result of the firing. The IDF confirmed the incident, saying they had fired warning shots at the Lebanese soldiers after they crossed the agreed line, separating the part of southern Lebanon that the Lebanese military is allowed in from the Israeli-occupied rest of southern Lebanon, where they are evidently not permitted. Lebanon suggested they believed Israeli troops were opening fire on them to discourage them from deploying in Zatwar al-Ghariba at all, though they said they still intended to continue deployment into the area. Elsewhere in southern Lebanon, a humanitarian aid convoy organized by French charity Louvre de Orient and coordinated with the UNIFIL peacekeepers in the area was denied entry to the Christian villages in the area by the Israeli military. The high-profile convoy, which was to enter the villages with several major news organizations in tow, was told by Israeli forces they didn't have permission. The convoy organizers said they were given permission by the UNIFIL, but that didn't matter. Reportedly, Israeli forces took some of the aid and promised to drop it off on the outskirts of the Christian villages it was intended for, but details surrounding that remain uncertain. I'm going to go ahead with they probably fucking didn't. And to kind of finish out our coverage of foreign policy for the day, figured to give Mamdan Zarani some ups. The commie himself, doing politics the right way. We covered the other day, I think it was yesterday actually, Zoran and kind of the story about where, kind of a lot of people are kind of putting it as like Zoran chicking out, essentially not imprisoning Netanyahu when he's getting ready to come to New York here soon. But I think it's pretty understandable, as he kind of explained. I think he even was saying what a lot of people were, essentially what he'd said before is he would look into what he could possibly do. But unfortunately, the United States and Israel, notably, are not signatories to the ICC. So, they don't have to, they don't necessarily have to, send them there. And I think he even reiterated that he just, they literally have federal laws in place that would allow the federal government to essentially apply pressure in one way or another against people, Mamdani and his administration who would be trying to essentially do this. So that could end up in a really weird, dicey territory. I'm kind of all for it. I'd like to see it, but I can totally get why he would stray away for it. But either way, he did put out a good statement kind of reiterating essentially what he thinks about Netanyahu and the terrorist regime of Israel. So big ups to him. And I know everyone, we're going to hear in these midterms coming up, everyone going, oh my God, the commies. And yeah, they're right. I guarantee you're going to hear a lot of economic retardation in the next 4 to 8 years, but the Republicans, the current GOP, have nobody but themselves to blame, and it's because people like Mamdani are willing to say things like this, and they aren't supporting what anyone with eyes and a heart and something resembling what we call a soul wouldn't be repulsed by. So anyways, with that, without any further ado, here's a good little statement from Mamdani to that effect.
Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal, the architect of a horrific genocide against the Palestinian people. He is responsible for the killing of more than 73,000 people, for the maiming of tens of thousands of children as those who survive undergo amputation without anesthesia, for the targeting of neonatal hospitals and maternity care centers, denying newborns even the chance to live, for the countless people he starved as he blocked food and humanitarian aid from reaching them, for the gunning down of hundreds of aid workers and journalists. And just last month, the UN confirmed that Palestinian children continue to be deliberately targeted and killed by Israeli armed forces, more than 8 months after the so-called ceasefire. The list goes on and on. All as we, as Americans, pay for the bombs that do the killing. There is a reason the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for his arrest. As human beings, we have spent generations building a shared understanding that there are crimes so grave they offend all of humanity. Anyone, with their eyes, with their heart, with their conscience, should recognize the devastation he has wrought and understand that he belongs before a court of law. As I've said, I agree with the ICC that Benjamin Netanyahu should be arrested and tried for his crimes, as I do for anyone else charged by the ICC. My administration has reviewed every avenue available under applicable law to determine whether New York City could execute the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant if Benjamin Netanyahu came here. It is clear that we do not have the independent legal authority to enforce this warrant. The federal government, however, does, and I call on them to join the ICC and execute this warrant. And I want to be equally clear. Benjamin Netanyahu is not welcome in New York City, nor is any other war criminal at large. While we cannot end the genocide on our own, we can decide whether our silence will become another weapon, and we can examine every tool we have to defend the humanity and dignity of all people. That is my commitment to you.
Nice little statement from Mom Donnie there. I hope we start seeing this being more of the norm. And some of the sea change that I mentioned, we've been seeing the Democrat Party. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see more of this going forward. So they're really doing their best to get me interested in politics again. So good on them. Keep it up. Maybe learn some economics. That'd be cool. With that, let's roll through the chat. Say some more. Good mornings. Checking on you wonderful people. Let's check in. I don't think I ever said good morning to you, Tara, though. Good morning to you. John Black says, I'm against all new laws. I wish this upcoming legislation session, they do nothing but repeal 1,000 existing laws. Yep. What else we got? Good morning, Retardo Genio. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Sean Newman saying, oorah. What else we got? That's where I got it wrong. I'm retarded. Tom33 says, didn't 0 Americans die? That's right. I was being an idiot. For some reason, I misinterpreted what he said there. So I'll take my lumps. So yeah, that is retarded. Yeah, he did actually have 0, technically, I think. I don't remember hearing anything about any American casualties. So for some reason, I was misunderstanding that. I don't know why. I mean, in retrospect, it's like, yeah, it totally makes sense that it would be 0 because he was talking about American. But for some reason, when I crossed that one, I forgot we were talking about Americans specifically. Maybe it's because it's near the end of a long list. My bad. So yeah, that's where I mistook it there. So yeah, that is actually, he is right. It's just the 0. So good morning, Hard R says Oive. Good morning, fellow dumpers. Good morning. Good morning. Ooh, what else we got? Good morning. Hey, say what now? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Aggressive greetings. Says never trust French humanitarian aid. You'll find yourself without a kidney in Turkey. Yeah. Matza saying they should just black bag Netanyahu and send him to a country that will prosecute him like Maduro was brought here. Yeah, I'm all here for it, but it's probably not going to happen. Hotep is pretty on the money though. Like I don't know. I am torn. I mean, he does spit a good game. He says Mom Donnie's political theater is owned by Jews. I know I've talked with Matt Wolfson quite a bit about this. Sort of, to some degree, you definitely see that. I mean, hell, his mom's literally in the Epstein files, which, I mean, just being in the Epstein files doesn't necessarily mean anything, but she was, I guess, at a lot of these weird parties, so she was in some of the emails. She's some, like, actress or something, so that's a little bit weird. I think his police commissioner is probably the biggest glaring, like, what? It's Jessica Tisch, who's, I believe, dad is, like, I think part of, like, the super group or whatever, you know, the mustache twirling villains, you know, the Tealites, you know, the ones investing everything for Israel. Is a super group, or I forget what they call it. Either way, like he's one of those major like IDF donors or whatever, or Israeli donors, or Tish's, and I think she was on before too. So my point being, she's like 100% an establishment creature. It's my understanding from my recollection is that it seems like there was probably some sort of political backhand deal or something that caused him to, when he came in, to keep Tish in place. So because yeah, I mean, like she is a creature of the establishment, so why would you keep her around? But so yeah, definitely lots of reasons to be concerned, but I mean, it is politics, so I don't fucking know. I mean, but this is why I don't trust politics. So all right, continuing on, let's get going. Mad Miller says communists aren't people. Yeah, I mean, it's fun to say, I guess, but I mean, they also are. They're just people with bad ideas. That's all it is. All right, let's talk about some Kirkin Off. Let's Kirk off together, guys. Let's touch on some Kirk stuff. I have a number of things lingering, bookmarks and different angles and things I wanted to go into with you guys. Here is a tweet from the homie Clint. I feel like it was a kind of a good starting point. It's kind of like a recap. Here he is responding to Seth Dillon, who says, who actually is responding to Brett Weinstein. We have Brett Weinstein that says, if Tyler Robinson acted alone, what's with the cover-up? And then the response here from Seth Dillon, is there admissible evidence establishing a cover-up? What is it? I did say admissible. I would say that's the key word here. And here's the homie Clint. He says, Lord knows he isn't asking in good faith, but I'll answer for the honest people who might be wondering. Now, as I did just say, I just want to be very clear. I think Clint may have actually, maybe he kind of just did what I just did there, where he I think almost kind of skimmed over something and dropped a key point of information. To be fair, Seth did say admissible evidence. This is stuff, so he's saying stuff you could submit in court and not just be like, well, that's weird, right? Like things you could submit in court. So I mean, some of this might be that. Some of this is also just kind of like, well, that's weird sort of stuff. So just want to be clear for that. I mean, just a moment ago, I fucked up. For those who don't listen to the chat portion of this show, I do want to emphasize in the foreign policy section, I fucked something up like a retard. I did what I'm just saying I think Clint sort of might have just done here. I kind of missed the little admissible thing. When I was reading this list that Trump listed off of American soldiers that died in conflicts. And near the end of it, he said Venezuela 0. And I immediately went, no, that's retarded. Where is he getting this idea from? And that's because in my head, for some reason, I dropped the American military members caveat there, and it just became des, and that actually is true. So just sorry, Trump, I fucked up. You were right. If you are watching this, you were right in that circumstances. There were, from everything we know, there were 0 American military members who did perish in the old Venezuela war, but there were people who did. So, but yes, 0. Anyways, so just throwing that out there. I think I'm kind of skimmed through some of these. I think probably a lot of these are not going to be in the admissible category, but that doesn't mean it's meaningless. It's still kind of like we should think about these things. So here's Clint. It says, Lord knows he isn't asking good faith, but I'll answer for the honest people who might be wondering. So here's one. So within 5 days of the attack, the site had been fully excavated and paved. According to the paver, this came down direct from the feds and UT government, who needed it done quickly and quietly. So actually, I have a good tab for that right now. Give me 1 second. I meant to cover this in the last Kirk one. I don't think I did, but if you're seeing this again, I apologize. Either way, it's worth emphasizing once again. Now, I've heard some people give some loose explanations for the whole paving over the crime scene, which I still find wanting. I mean, it is one of those things, I've seen Nick Fuentes, who, for example, his reasoning is it was 5 days later. He's saying the bullet, there was no exit wound, so the bullet had been recovered and it had been days, and he was like, well, they had everything they needed, so it's what the fuck does it matter? Who cares? If they excavated after that. And he's and yeah, it makes perfect sense. Why would you want this constant reminder for days of people on this, college campus walking by, seeing where something tragic happened, the bloodstains on the pavement or whatever? So that was the reason. I find it wanting, especially when you kind of see exactly what they did. Here are pictures from the scene where they did excavate. So to give you an idea of the extent to which they went, which I don't know. Let me know if anyone out here does these sort of construction projects. If you were, let's say there was a chunk, is there some sort of reasoning why the whole giant area would need to be taken out? You couldn't just take a chunk. I don't know. So here's another, give you an idea. That looks like what? 20 feet by 60 feet, just rough guess off the top of my head. Seems like kind of excessive but I don't know. Maybe it's just a perspective thing. So yeah, here's just pictures from it. So it gives you an idea what they did. I find it wanting, the idea of like, well, whatever, they didn't really need it. So I don't know. You do with that what you will. Definitely in the weird territory for sure. But all right, let's go back to Clint's tweet. Goes, former director of counterterrorism Joe Kent said he had seen viable leads hinting at potential foreign intel involvement. He was frozen out of the investigation by Kash Patel. Footage of the arrest was deleted, which I'm not entirely sure. I remember we covered that forever ago. I think it's like implied it could have been deleted. It's like one of those ones like it's not for sure was deleted, but it's like, why do we not have this? But we don't have it the other way, so that's fishy. No footage that clearly IDs Tyler exists from UVU campus, nor do we ever see him with the rifle, which that is true. I mean, we have all these different all these different, views of somebody, some person, but I would argue none of those are like unmistakably Tyler Robinson. There's some that look more or less like him, ones that could more or less look like him, but pretty much, I mean, every one of them is believable it could be him, but that's not how logic is done. Multiple TPUSA affiliate influencers provably lied through their teeth last week about smoking gun footage. It doesn't exist. Clint is on the money there. They were definitely way over. I mean, you could play some J games here and be like, well, technically, because it is like the claim was that they saw the shoot and that we've talked about this essentially with that security camera. If you back it up, you can see kind of a tiny little itty bitty bit is the idea. And like, the theory is like that is the area where he would be shooting, but the idea that you could make out the shot, you could make out you can make out anything when we're talking about like maybe a couple pixels on a screen, we're in ridiculous territory. But like, I guess you could find some weird abstract way to be like, well, I'm certain I thought I saw him shoot. Like you saw the pixel jump and you're like, oh, that's when he shot. Okay, retarded, but whatever. Some scrap, it's not even really in the realm of believability, but like if you are in like J-Town, if you're really in this like legalistic, like, well, maybe. Expert testimony claimed the Mauser 98 had dust in the barrel. So at this point, we can't even confirm the rifle was fired. This is Robinson's roommate. Actually, let's hone on the this actually I think works as a good place to kind of jump off with some of the tabs I have. So expert testimony claimed the Mauser 98 had dust in the barrel. I don't remember ever seeing that. So may have to hunt down some of these, the whole dust in the barrel one, because that'd be pretty interesting if that is true. But either way, there has been someone's taken another go at a ballistics test on this 30-06 thing. Here's Ian Carroll. He says, well, Valhalla VFT just did the most definitive test in the magic bullet theory yet, and surprise, surprise, it blew through everything. They used the type of bullets Tyler allegedly used, recreated the same distance and scope, and shot through a freshly butchered hog, as well as some other hunks of meat and bone. Once again, soft point 30-06 easily blew through all of it, not even remotely similar to what happened to Charlie. If Charlie Kirk had been shot by one of these, the scene would have been considerably more traumatizing. But for the trust the narrative crowd, I'm sure they'll find a new way to tell you to ignore your eyes and ears and just get vaccinated against common sense. This is just a short highlight reel. Full videos with all the shots and results is in the comments. Go give it some love. Nate invests a lot of time and money in this test, and YouTube is throttling it. So with that, I just gave it actually a retweet. If you want to go check it out on your own, the tweet from Ian Carroll, so you can find in the comments where he has the link if you want to check out the full thing. But let's watch this super cut they made here. Let's see what Valhalla has to say.
So as you can see, we are not fabricating. He is all the way up there. We got our 9-degree slope. There's our target out there. 141 yards. If you are squeamish, this is your fair warning to skip the next part of the video, but it is very, very important for us to actually see the results of this on the hog and actually see the damage done to something just substantially bigger or stronger than a human being. Again, this was fresh as of hours ago. This is basically, the closest thing you're going to get to a live animal that you have. And this is insane. I didn't expect this. For this to rip this animal in half like this.
Our bullet lost a little bit of weight. Is that a small, tiny little piece of the jacket?
Yep.
That's barely the size of a head of a
So this is great to look at. Let's see if I can pull this up. So guys, as you say, Charlie supposedly had the round plus 7 fragments. All we got was that tiny little sliver of jacket. Crazy, dude. Look at that. It just, ripped this animal in half.
That wasn't even attached.
If anything can possibly stop this round today, this is what we're assuming is going to do it. So here's the exit wound, as you can see. And we shot it actually from the front of the pork shoulder, but as you can see it, I mean, look at this hole. Shattered the bone. Massive exit wound. Here's the, as you can see here, guys, here's our entrance wound, right? Great shot.
Thank you.
Look at that. That's about as perfect shot as you get. Straight through the front of it, and you guys can see look how much meat this is, guys. Look at me. Look at my torso here. This is all bone. Massive animal bone, brand new, not brittle. Butchered today. Straight through everything. Massive explosive. I mean, look at this. Look at that, guys. Straight through. And to all the Twitter ballistics experts, we'll put up the data for it also. And feel free to go out and try this yourself. And please show us your recreation of this exact shot like we did. And show us how this doesn't go through a human neck.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that I've expressed to you guys from the jump. Like, I know a lot of people ridicule the people who find something, perhaps something fishy is going on here. But this has been one of the ones from the jump that you're like, really, a 30-06? I really did kind of think from the jump that maybe what was going to happen is because I forget even the idea of how we found out it was supposedly a 30-06 at first. And I think we saw the gun, obviously, but it's still like, how do we match the gun up to the body? I mean, like, we still hadn't really, there's no ballistics or nothing at that point. Or I'm trying to remember, how did we find out what the 30, I think it was Andrew Colvett, right? So I think, so, and most people, I remember actually seeing Ryan Dawson out there saying that, like, because he kind of likes to be, a little bit more, I don't know, not as, anyways, I remember he was kind of saying, like, kind of poo-pooing the 30-06 thing and kind of being like, that's ridiculous. And he was kind of, I think he was implying like, yeah, it's, Tyler did it. This is just ridiculous. Fucking Andrew Colvett just made up some, just said some crazy thing or whatever. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And like, so kind of making as he just made some weird statement. So I assume somehow this is going to be some sort of misunderstanding, something, somehow, some way. We're going to find out later, oh no, this wasn't a 30-06. I struggled to really buy the idea that they were really going to hold that line, that this is the angle. Especially because the initial thing that suggested that it was that it would be that they were going with 30-06, I think was weak. So I was like, I feel like this is not going to be the confirmation later. They're going to find out, oh, they chased down the wrong gun. It wasn't a 30-06. Like, this is how they... Anyway, either way, and once I'm by no means a huge gun guy. I'm not a hunting guy. I talked to you, I think the last time we talked, Kirk, about I did grow up a little bit of hunting. I've shot quite a few guns, but I just feel like everyone I've ever talked to, every experience I've ever had with 30-06s, yes, they don't blow fucking arms. They're not like 50 cals or tank rounds or something insane where you're literally your head will vaporize or some shit. But it's going to go in and out is basically generally. I know we talked about MLK, but even his was his came from a weird angle and went kind of, I think, almost downward straight into the torso. And even then it kind of actually did have an exit wound. It went into the neck. It looked like it went out the neck and then back in through the body. So it kind of blew the fuck out of his neck, went through. So people always try to bring up MLK and be like, well, I'm okay at 30-06. For one, that's already a spooky fucking death. So I'm not even necessarily from the jump accepting was a 30-06, but even if we do, it's well, I mean, if we look at that wound, it's it's a much different thing. Yes, technically it did end up in the body. It sort of actually did kind of go, it really was an entrance, exit, entrance is basically what happened there. And yeah, so and even then, even if that's what you're counting is that, it's like I said, it fucking it made his neck look fucking disgusting. Just blew the fuck. That's not what we saw with Kirk. We did. Yes, it was gruesome. It was awful. There was blood, but it wasn't like some giant chunk of him was gone. It wasn't this. Yeah. Anyways, so the 30-06 is one I've always struggled to buy. I still do. I know technically there probably are anecdotal examples of somehow when this 30-06 has done this thing or that. And I know they were hedged on like, well, what if it was this ammo or that ammo? And I think we've already found out what the ammo was and has kind of essentially eliminated all those. What if it was this ammo? What if it was that ammo? And now we're just left with your normal 30-06 sort of bullet, and we're supposed to just, without any of these outs here, be like, yeah, that's somehow just went in his neck. Just fucking, he drank his milk. So we're back to, fucking bone strong, neck strong, just flex. You'll fucking take it. So ridiculous. But all right, let's go back to Clint here, listing out his bullet points of what what seems to imply a cover up to him. We just read about the gun. So we got Robinson's roommate was granted limited immunity, and he now serves as the only witness to have confirmed a confession at all. Now, we did talk about the immunity thing. So the immunity thing's actually kind of nonsensical. So, like, this is one of those ones people run with and kind of, like, keep saying over and over again. Should probably stop using that. So, I mean, on the off chance you see this Clit or something, I don't know. Maybe I should reach out and say something to him, like maybe probably stop repeating that one. Because it's not true. I mean, he was granted technically limited immunity, but the sort of immunity he was granted was, like, something that totally makes sense. We looked into this show. It was essentially that, like, anything he talks about here cannot be used as, like, the originating source in order to do something, And I'm sure even that has, like, caveats. So, like, to go after him legally. Now, if there's something else that's found elsewhere, so he's still able to be prosecuted for crimes. It's not like he's getting this crazy immunity. But I don't know, don't be wrong. I think this guy's shady. But anyways, speaking of shady roommates, let's check in on Mel, the village crazy lady. She says, many people don't know this, but Tyler and Lance had a third roommate in 2024 in the first half of 2025. That roommate is the source of the Turkey Tom text, which I think we talked about that. This was that's a YouTube creator, and around way back when there was this story where he talked about some other person, I guess, was supposedly in this friend group, and so which is why kind of confusing what we're getting at here. A little bit of a misrepresentation of what actually he was, which was actually a third roommate, according to Village Crazy Lady here. But they kind of positioned themselves as someone who knew Tyler and Lance, and essentially, was giving inside information to Turkey Tom to what they were doing and certain texts and I think drawings that he found and stuff like that. And this is an angle I've talked about before where if there is truth to this, this is where the whole trans Tifa sevens or sort of 76409A sort of vibes kind of come in. And then where it is there could be something to the whole tranny thing or something like that. But nothing really ever seemed to materialize from that. Aside from this just one Turkey Tom video that just came off as it was super duper just a trust me bro thing, which, okay, I mean, that is what it is. Someone says a trust me bro, you wait to see if more trust me bros start to appear. Hopefully maybe you can find something verifiable, but just one trust me bro, and I never really saw anything more to that effect. But either way, I guess we're getting more details sort of in this realm. It's kind of making this look a little bit more like this third roommate that provided this story is like I kind of was thinking perhaps a little bit glowy perhaps. I says if you go back and read those messages, that understanding, you can easily derive that from context. It says that roommate is also the sole source of the Lance is trans talking point, but because the roommate has been repeatedly quoted as an unnamed friend and not a literal freaking roommate, created the effect of many people saying it. When I first figured out the TT texts were written by someone who actually lived with Lance and Tyler, I couldn't understand why he hadn't simply identified himself as their former roommate. It would have instantly given him more credibility. Now, I'm not going to go back through all of these myself. I know we went through some of them back in the day. I don't know if we went through all of them. I don't remember getting that impression, but I guess maybe I just missed it. So just to be clear, this is where we're getting the idea. So this is Village Crazy Lady, Mel on Twitter. We've had her on the show before. So she's saying from reading this, she intuits, or not even intuits, she's like, this makes way more sense. This guy's a third roommate. So maybe she'll back that up, point up a little bit more other than just stating it. We'll see. But either way, it's believable. That's for sure. And by saying he was their friend, it made all those pictures he had taken of Lance's nest look weird as fuck. It made everyone think the messages were written by the feds because, who stalks around their friend's house taking pictures like that? Well, going through the transcripts today, I finally figured out it's because nearly all the actual evidence against Tyler had been collected from the roommate's room, not Tyler's, specifically the Remington boxes and the other engraved bullets. Okay, so that's one of her points there. So that's one that actually makes sense. I remember when you go through the Turkey Tom text, there is like all these different pictures of like this thing, that thing. Here's this thing Tyler drew while he was high on drugs or whatever, and communicating with demons or whatever the fuck the weird claims they were saying. So that would be weird. If you're just some dude who knows him and you're like documenting all these things, you'd be like, dude, what are you doing? Makes way more sense if it's someone, if it's coming from inside the house. So I'm now more convinced than ever that whoever this roommate is the one who set Tyler up. I think he's some kind of handler probably. And I also think Lance is the one who he was supposed to set up. And for some reason, Tyler went in his place. That's why he took all those pictures, meticulously documenting Lance's mental illness. That's why 3/4 of the messages with Turkey Tom are detailing Lance's mental illnesses and barely mentioning Tyler whatsoever. Oh yeah, that's right. They claimed Lance was the weird like psycho that was like doing like getting crazy high on drugs and like, blasted out of his mind and like trying to draw and like essentially he was doing like, essentially for those who are familiar with a cult that's like essentially trying to commune. Like, that's kind of what they're doing, like using drugs and getting other mind states to, and he would like babble and just, just kind of word association, what came to mind, write down, just weird shit like that. So getting into weird, dark, occult sort of fucked up shit. But for reasons I still haven't figured out, Tyler went to Orem instead of Lance that day. Orem says, I think those iMessages were written using Tyler's Apple account logged into his MacBook. That's why Apple records weren't presented in court. I tested this out one day by having my phone locked and simply messaging my girlfriend from my desktop. I was able to send and receive messages with her and then delete them on my Mac, and my phone never once pinged, and I had no record of them on my phone. I think a lot of communication between that roommate and Lance and Tyler. And that's why they kept search warrant for all data collection limited to simply the dates between August 27th and September 12th. Police routinely subpoena years' worth of comms for a suspect accused of petty crimes, but they are only interested in 15 days' worth of communications in the most high-profile murder of the last 60 years. Total BS. Says, I've picked up on many issues with the official story going through these transcripts, but I've had to get this one off my chest because it's been bugging me for months. Interesting theory. And in the bottom here, she's sharing an excerpt from these texts, so... I'm going to read some of them that I think kind of gives you an idea of this is perhaps someone who lives inside the house. So starting at the top, says, if you turn left up the stairs, you're going to run into 2 bedrooms. And that is on the south end of that residence. The southeast bedroom would be Tyler's. And the southwest would be the spare bedroom. So showing pretty intimate knowledge of where every location is. And then also, hey, there's a spare bedroom. Kind of weird for 2 young guys. Why would they get a place with spare bedroom? Although I think if I recall correctly, I think Lance's family owns properties or something, and that's somehow how they got hooked up. So anyways, moving on. This is again, if you go back to the stairs and make a right-hand turn, that is where you're now on the north end of that residence, and that is now Twiggs' bedroom. And then here's another question. And where were these items here in 23 found? So these were found in the southwest, or in the southwest bedroom, the one right next to Tyler's bedroom. You said on the top of safe, yes. It says, okay, all right, we describe what you're looking at, Exhibit 23. It says, Exhibit 23 of the 5 cartridge casings we found on top of the safe. All were .30-06 Springfield caliber, and one of them had an engraving that said test shot on it. It says, you've talked about Springfield Remington. These 30-06s are the same type of round that was found in the gun. I don't really know what she's proving here other than maybe I'm assuming perhaps the context is that's like the other roommate, although I think we would know more about him. So I don't really completely understand the context here of the excerpt she shared. She didn't really give any further clarification. But either way, interesting point. There's definitely some weirdness going on with the roommate situation, this whole other string of texts and this Turkey Tom guy. That's always been an unresolved angle. And I'm like, what is going on over there? All right, let's check back in with our boy Clint with these bullet points that he's brought up, kind of recapping. It says, more strange, Twiggs claims Robinson barely talked politics and never questioned or never mentioned Charlie Kirk. Very unusual given that the prosecution's narrative would lead you to believe he was carrying out this attack in defense of their gay/trans lifestyle. There are dozens of other data points that would demonstrate a cover-up, but truthfully, I still don't know who killed CK, and I lean towards Tyler having been involved. I wish we could just all acknowledge that the government isn't reliable in asking these questions. It's not just necessary, but healthy. People love to throw out stuff like Egyptian planes or Foreign Legion to diminish the above, but everything I listed is verifiably accurate. Deserves real answers, not the condescending nonsense Seth and so many others specializes in. But yeah, with that, let's move. Let's check on the other side of this. Here's Jack Posobiec. Let's see the sort of claims they're making. Here's Jack Posobiec. He says, never seen more evidence against someone that I've seen against Tyler Robinson. DNA, fingerprints, eyewitnesses, surveillance, ballistics, cell phone data, testimony from his closest family and friends. It's all there, which, okay, that's one way to interpret this. Here's Mel again. She says, Jack just lies. There were no fingerprints found in the scene matching Tyler's, so I really want to get into the fingerprints here today. Never really dug into this. So no eyewitnesses putting him at the scene. No ballistic reports matching the bullet fragments in Charlie to the gun found in the woods. No testimony from anyone other than his roommate who had to be given immunity in order to testify. No cell phone data has ever been presented putting Tyler on UVU. We haven't even been shown a clear surveillance video of Tyler. All the shills are going to scream, it wasn't a trial. It was just a preliminary hearing at me. But you'll notice they never say the same thing to Jack when he spews bullshit like this. It's so gross. And she is very on point there. And then more on the fingerprints here. Someone replied to her, said, pretty sure the fingerprints on the window where he climbed explicitly were not Tyler's. Seems like a big deal to me. And then Mel replied, correct, fingerprints didn't match, palm didn't match, forearm print didn't match. This was why they changed the entire story about the screwdriver being found in the woods to being found on the roof. Because otherwise they had nothing actually putting Tyler on the roof. She shares an excerpt here. It says, authorities found a screwdriver near recovered rifle. Sources say... So I guess his initial report saying it was near the rifle in the woods, and later they put it on on the roof, which I believe the screwdriver is something they said that would be needed for the breakdown put together for that. I've never broken down a Mauser, so I don't know, but that's what I've heard. Authorities recovered a screwdriver near the rifle investigators believe was used in yesterday's fatal shooting of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, according to a source with knowledge of the investigation. Investigators believe this to be an indication the shooter may have used it to disassemble and reassemble the firearm before using it. Removing the stock would help the shooter conceal the weapon in a bag or even his clothing, they believe. I guess the idea there was like, oh, he brought it with him later or whatever. But yeah, I do remember later then they go, oh, it was on the roof. But all right, moving on to the last thing we have, the last bit of Kirkin Off we'll do here. Here is a little bit of a kind of in the same vein of things. It kind of comes into the crazy claims Candace has made. Here's from Ken. It says, Charlie Kirk's ex-security card says he's tried serving Mitch Snow 7 times now. He's accused Snow of evading service and has asked for a 30-day extension to serve him. Snow is the one who claims to have seen Erica Kirk at a military base a day before the assassination. We also covered the last time we talked about the Kirk thing that this case, too, he's also furthermore... they're struggling getting this lawsuit set up because apparently every one of the judges in the region in which he's filed recused themselves from the case for conflict of interest, which don't know what the fuck's going on with there. But for some reason, every judge in that region, which is I think the region that Candace lives in Tennessee, finds it to be a conflict of interest to reside over a trial that Candace is in. So really makes you wonder what the absolute fuck is going on there. But I don't know, maybe time will tell. With that, let's roll to the chat, and we will get into the next segment here in a moment. Let's check in on you, beautiful people, see what you guys got to say. Admissible, Tom says, is just semantics. Yeah, you're kind of right, because it is like, what do you mean admissible? Because it's like, I would think that the implication is like some sort of specific like evidentiary thing, but even then, a lot of times, even if it's not something you would think is like admissible, like you could mention it in court in certain contexts. So I mean, sometimes the defense, from my understanding, will even contrive alternate theories. So it's like, I guess in a sense that they're admitting a theory. So it's like, well, what do you mean? It is a weird weasel word. Like, what is admissible here? Good morning, JMS. Good morning. Good morning. aggressively agreeing, says, compare any of Kash Patel's text messages to his Vegas roommate while he was hammered with the first transcript they made public between Robinson and that trans and see if it's similar. Yeah. All right, what else we got? Tom says, anyone knows anything about guns knew along that video was not a 30-06 round going through his neck. Yeah, I mean, like, it's like I always feel like I have to qualify because there's always some weird gun guy online. It's like, you've seen every 30-06 ever? Like, it happens. And you're like, what? Like, what world are we living? I mean, it's almost like this gaslighting thing. You're like, what? I mean, like, yeah, maybe there's some weird abstract theoretical, like kind of like the MLK one, but even then, that's not really even the same situation. But, yeah, he says, before I was on the mic bomb, I assumed second shooter was a smaller round. Yeah, I kind of from the beginning thought, like, and even then I kind of, from a big brain, like, spook game, what are they doing? I always thought the 30-06 was like, kind of like kind of to mislead the people, like a red herring. Like, ooh, we kind of see like Andrew Colvett saying, oh, he stopped a 30-06, neck of steel or whatever. And then you find this 30-06, weapon. And the next thing you know, you're like, wait, it's not a 30-06. So I thought that would be like the switcheroo, essentially allows the person to get away. And I guess that still could be the case. Maybe there's some sort of cover up. Maybe they know it's something other than 30-06 and they're lying or whatever. But I mean, it almost would have just been easier to just be like, after the fact, be like, oh shit, we were working on bad information. We got to start all over again. But yeah, so yeah, Tom says the 30-06 would have almost blown his head off because of how thin a neck is. Yeah, from a neck, definitely. Yeah. Good morning, Tyler. Good morning. Need to get you back on here one of these days. Good morning to you. So you guys think you're ballistics experts, as JC. Good morning to you, Tyler, or not Tyler, JC. But yeah, good morning to you too, Tyler. But I say good morning to you. Good morning, JC. Good to see you in the chat. All right, let's get into, I'm debating whether I want to do this Fed stuff or I want to just jump right to the Whitney Webb reading. Let's do, I am torn. I think I could, I don't think I have enough time for spook stories. That's going to take way too long. Let's move spook stories to tomorrow. We'll cover some of this tomorrow. That'll be the leading thing tomorrow. I have a couple good little spook stories for you. Let's get into our reading of Whitney Webb's Secret History of Polymarket. Before we do get into that, to kind of front off this conversation, here is a tweet from Third Eye Spies. Give a little retweet for you guys. It's Howard Lutnick. We talked about him a lot yesterday when we were reading this piece. He was a pretty key figure in the early, essentially futures trading, stock trading on like abstract concepts as opposed to like legitimate businesses and these weird money games they're playing. Howard Lutnick was one of those main movers, which is obviously concerning if you have the slightest shred of an idea of who Howard Lutnick is and what he's about. Definitely concerning. So here's another little dig kind of into Howard Lutnick, saying Howard Lutnick is a co-founder of the teal-backed streaming platform Rumble, which I am streaming at, so it's a little concerning, who received $775 million from Brock Pierce's Tether, privately contracted Andrew Tate to create content for $6 million a year, and whose former general counsel Michael Ellis became deputy director of the CIA. So let's and he privately contracted Andrew Tate to create content. So Rumble was paying Andrew Tate $6 million a year. You always see these 6 million figures come up all the time. It does seem to be the case, huh? And the general counsel of, I guess they're saying, so to reiterate that, the general counsel of this, what is it, of Tether? No. Of Rumble, Michael Ellis was the deputy director of the CIA. This stuff is really all incestuous, hard to keep track of. Let's look at this these excerpts they shared here to give us a better idea. This is from Crane Currency. It says cryptocurrency. It says, while Lutnick and Cantor are major crypto supporters, the filing makes no mention of direct crypto holdings owned by the CEO. The filing references a personal shareholding in Rumble Incorporated, the right-wing video site that went public through a Cantor special purpose acquisition company and received a $775 million investment from another of Lutnick's key clients, the crypto firm Tether Holdings Limited, which has been under investigation by federal prosecutors. Lutnick was to have faced a U.S. Senate confirmation hearing Wednesday. I'm not sure when this is written. The Cantor Fitzgerald CEO earned distributions from the firm of nearly $200 million in 2023 and 2024, according to disclosure. Lutnick and related entities had several positions in an asset labeled as an HIC repo, apparently related to Cantor's role as a custodian and dealer of U.S. Treasuries. The largest of these positions was worth at least $50 million, according to the disclosure. Here's more. Here's another excerpt from the New Yorker from some piece. It says Tate made a deal with the right-wing streaming service Rumble, which had previously received major investments from Peter Thiel, the tech billionaire, and J.D. Vance, Trump's future vice president. The details have not previously been confirmed, but a confidential contract shows an agreement to pay Tate at least $6 million a year for a weekly quota of 5 short videos and a 35-minute live stream. This is like both of our segments from yesterday colliding here, the Tate and the Polymarket one. His presence inspired a 45% increase in active users, sending Rumble to first place on the Apple and Google charts. A few months later, Elon Musk bought Twitter and reinstated Tate's account. And here's another one. Here's the last excerpt we'll be going through here before we get into the actual reading. It says Rumble gives legal chief $1 million payout amid move to CIA. Okay, so it was Rumble and it was their legal chief. So Michael Ellis. It says Rumble Incorporated, a video sharing platform once backed by J.D. Vance, gave its former general counsel Michael Ellis a $1 million payout upon his resignation to become deputy director of the CIA. So the deputy director is right before this was the chief legal counsel or legal chief for Rumble. So that seems interesting. That's worthwhile knowing. The company disclosed in a February 7th securities filing that Ellis, who was hired by Rumble to be its top lawyer and corporate secretary in late 2021, left on that date to pursue a position in government. Trump announced February 3rd that Ellis will serve as number 2 of the CIA under Ratcliffe. Ellis had reportedly been in line to serve as general counsel for the CIA. So interesting group of connections there. Obviously not a whole lot we can really glean from that, but worthwhile knowing, that's for sure, especially as we continue to dig through this story. And jumping in on, we just finished our bit on the history of futures trading or of American prediction markets, a brief history. So let's jump into DARPA discovers prediction markets, because what we've been talking about here and kind of what this thing is about is, this is another one of these DARPA projects has gotten revitalized like Frankenstein and sent into the private industry. I just realized I didn't have this slide up the whole time, but oh well. Wasn't really anything too visual in the last one, but let's dig into it. It says DARPA discovers prediction markets. It says Robin Hansen, the inventor of Idea Futures, who helped create the Foresight Exchange, got his biggest break to expand on his ideas and develop a new prediction market just a few months before Cantor Fitzgerald acquired the Hollywood Stock Exchange with the hopes of building an unconventional futures market. That break came courtesy of the U.S. DoD, now the Department of War, and its sub-agency, DARPA. Sometime in the year 2000, Michael Foster, a DARPA program manager working on quantum computer research backed by the National Science Foundation, learned of Hansen's efforts as well as those of the IEM. Foster then convinced colleagues at DARPA that their agency should fund research into prediction markets that could potentially be used to guide public policy decision-making. This was notably years before Hansen independently developed his ideas of futurarchy, which posits using prediction markets as a system of public governance. These ideas and their relevance today are discussed in part 2 of this investigation. DARPA was also interested in prediction markets for other reasons, as some of the agency's managers also believed a prediction market could serve as an aggression mechanism capable of bypassing bureaucratic and political obstacles to information sharing among U.S. national security agencies. This belief is directly related to efforts of those same national security agencies immediately after the 9/11 attacks to blame the siloing of info within agencies for the supposed failure of imagination that allowed the attacks to occur despite the ostensible efforts of the U.S. intelligence apparatus. This is, of course, despite the copious evidence pointing to the direct involvement of intelligence agencies in the 9/11 attacks and the efforts to stifle any meaningful investigation into those attacks. Nevertheless, the intelligence community's own narrative, backed by intel-linked contractors like Oracle's Larry Ellison, was that extensive info sharing between federal agencies and their main contractors was necessary to prevent another 9/11 style attack from occurring. These narratives set the stage for the deployment of intelligence-linked software programs that were promoted as solving these problems. First, of Christine Maxwell's Chiliad. Christine is Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, and follow Peter Thiel's Palantir. Then CIA Chief Information Officer Alan Wade was closely connected to the origins of both Chiliad and Palantir. He had also been a close working partner of the DARPA office that would later host the surveillance project or program Total Information Awareness, a Palantir predecessor, as well as the DARPA-backed prediction market Hansen would help create. In May 2001, DARPA issued a request for proposals, one of which was called the Electronic Market-Based Decision Support. According to an archived version of the proposal, the request sought applicants that could design one or more markets to predict events in a limited domain of interest to the DoD, then subsequently manage that market. Contracts related to this project were awarded to two companies, one of which was Neoteric Technologies and NetExchange. Neoteric was a military contractor specializing in information technology and artificial intelligence, which subcontracted a company called Martech to handle the specific proposal. Martech was a private company composed largely of the architects of the IEM. NetExchange was a company that focused on combinatorial markets, i.e. markets in which bundles of items are bought and sold, and in applying for DARPA funding, sought to create a combinatorial prediction market. Hansen, then teaching at George Mason University, as well as another George Mason professor, David Porter, were recruited to work for NetExchange's program, which would later become known as the Policy Analysis Market, or PAM. How Hansen served as a system architect for PAM. Also consulted in this project with a team of Tradesports.com/Intrade, an Ireland-based prediction market funded by Paul Tudor Jones, Stan Druckenmiller, and Rupert Murdoch. Its then chief executive, John Delaney, who later died while scaling Mount Everest in 2011, told the UK's Evening Standard that it additionally offered DARPA and PAM its data, service, and assistance. A year later, in 2002, Michael Foster's DARPA program, Future Markets Applied to Prediction, Future Map, which had included the Hansen-affiliated PAM, was placed within a newly created office at DARPA called the Information Awareness Office, the IAO. The office had been created at the behest of John Poindexter, known simultaneously for being the highest-ranking Reagan administration official convicted in relation to the Iran-Contra scandal, and also for being the godfather of modern surveillance. Poindexter was subsequently hired as a DARPA executive and put in charge of the new office he had lobbied for, IAO. IAO's flagship program, Total Information Awareness, an unprecedented surveillance dragnet that sought to develop predictive applications for national security and law enforcement similar to pre-crime, was also Poindexter's brainchild. IAO also housed various projects aside from TIA, such as Foster's Future Map program, of which Hansen's PAM was part. Just like TIA, the goal of PAM and Future Map at large was avoiding surprise and predicting future markets, whereas TIA sought to predict terrorist and criminal activity before it could occur through mass surveillance of Americans' daily activities. PAM focused on using market-based techniques for similar ends. However, in the case of PAM, its efforts to predict events included but went far beyond terrorist activity. PAM also sought to focus on global and regional political stability, predicting the timing and impact of emerging technologies, predicting the outcomes of advanced technology, and other future events of interest at the DoD. To the DoD. Hansen has noted that other areas of interest had included growth rates or oil prices. TIA, along with the vast majority of the programs housed within the IAO, were intended to interface. But put differently, PAM and other IAO programs were created with the intention of being directly connected to TIA and each other in order to improve the accuracy of predictions. This is even reflected in the logos of PAM and TIA. The IAO/TIA logo, which has since become infamous, shows a one-eyed pyramid surveilling the entire Earth, flanked by the phrase, "Science is power" in Latin. The PAM logo places the pyramid within the letter A, and that pyramid, like the TIA pyramid, is also surveilling the Earth while also shooting out a beam from its opposite end that touches a market graph. So kind of doing the light to the light spectrum, the whole rainbow. So it does the little thing where the one light comes in one, and then it has this little pyramid in the middle, or inside the A, the little triangle, and it comes out the other end, showing like a graph out the other end that's it has like a rainbow coming out. Pam involved not only Hansen, the DARPA contractor that employed him, NetExchange, but also intimately involved The Economist magazine's Economist Intelligence Unit. Though most know The Economist for its media publications, the EIU offers its services to businesses and governments and provides them with forecasting and advisory services. They offer, among other services, reports on the economic, political, and business environments in 205 countries to help their clients understand how the world is changing and how that creates opportunities to be seized and risks to be managed. According to the now archived PAM website, the Economist Intelligence Unit is working with NetExchange to collect and process the data on which the securities in PAM are based, and then to assess the value of the securities when they mature. Coincidentally, around the time the EIU was becoming involved with DARPA and PAM, Lynn Forrester de Rothschild and her husband Evelyn de Rothschild. The dude's name is Evelyn? Holy shit, that's awful. All right, his name is Evelyn de Rothschild, who boasted close ties to figures like Henry Kissinger, Jeffrey Epstein, and the Clintons, sought a significant 26.9% stake in the Economist parent company, which was finalized in 2003. Reportedly, due to the high cost of the EIU services per country, designers of PAM decided to focus on 8 Middle Eastern nations for their prediction market experiment: Turkey, Syria, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Jordan, and Egypt. The intention was to have select participants engage in trading activities every 3 months for a 2-year test period to determine the prices for 5 different parameters for each nation. These parameters include U.S. financial involvement in each, U.S. military activity in each, that nation's economic growth, level of political instability, and its own military activities. Traders were also expected to predict values for common economic indicators like gross domestic product, as well as security indicators such as casualties resulting from terror attacks in the West and casualties of the U.S. military. The chosen traders could also trade futures on future events that might occur within any of the 8 Middle Eastern nations. Hansen expanded on this article he later wrote about PAM and its efforts, stating, "Traders would be allowed to predict millions of combinations of the parameters, such as how moving U.S. troops out of Saudi Arabia would affect political stability there, how that would affect stability in neighboring nations, and how all that might change oil prices. Similar trades could, for example, have predicted the local and global consequences of invading Iraq had the markets been ready then." Initially, the goal was to have the select traders who would use PAM be employees of U.S. federal intelligence agencies. However, this became complicated by the legal barriers around conditional transfers of funds between federal agencies. Instead of having employers of different intelligence agencies compete, PAM then sought to recruit its traders from a single intelligence agency. Okay, sounds like it could be a problem. However, no agency reportedly showed enough interest. As a result, they decided to open the market to select members of the public, which they were only able to do because as agents of the DoD, they were technically exempt from anti-gambling laws. So that's a interesting little loophole there. So these being as this is a government project, this becomes exempt from gambling laws. So that's interesting. Architects of PAM had intended to launch test operations September 2003, with a full launch planned for January 2004. However, that timeline was interrupted when PAM became the target of significant congressional and media criticism in July 2003, which saw PAM become publicly branded as a terrorism futures market. The backlash against the terrorism's future market, i.e. PAM, was arguably intensified by earlier scrutiny of the Total Information Awareness Program that, like PAM, was housed under the Poindexter-run Information Awareness Office at DARPA. On July 28, 2003, Senators Ron Wyden and Byron Dorgan held a joint press conference where they criticized DARPA for spending millions of dollars on some kind of fantasy league terror game, which they argued was absurd and frankly ought to make every American angry. Those sympathetic to PAM's ambitions later point out that Wyden and Dorgan had held their press conference when DARPA's public relations manager was out of office and unreachable. thus depriving that agency of a chance to offer a timely and informed response to the senator's allegations. A day later, the New York Times described Pam as an online futures trading market disclosed today by critics in which anonymous speculators would bet on forecasting terrorist attacks, assassinations, and coups. Following the Times' lead, a litany of negative articles quickly appeared in the nation's press shortly thereafter, and on July 29, 2003, the Pentagon announced that it would abandon its plans to make Pam a reality. Public and congressional concern over both Pam as well as TIA resulted in Congress cutting the funding for the IAO office entirely via legislation that was signed into law in September 2003. Hansen has since expressed his views on the events that led to the shuttering of Pam and seems to regard the efforts of Wyden and Dorgan as somewhere between misguided and outright dishonest. In addition, in a 2021 interview with Richard Hanania, Hansen also expressed his view that Pam had largely failed because 2 years after 9/11, people were no longer afraid enough. That's retarded. Like, they were peak afraid 2 years after 9/11. Maybe not peak, but they were damn near peak. He stated the following about what he described as his betting market publicity fiasco in 2003. He said, "This was soon after 9/11, and just 2 years later, people looked at the betting markets and said, 'Oh, you're betting on death. That's terrible. You have to shut them down.' If they were really scared of terror attacks, if they were actually feeling a large degree of threat, they would have said, 'To heck with this rule against betting on death. Let's turn on these markets. Let's find out where the attacks are going to be so we can stop them.'" I think, actually, let's do this one real quick. I was going to save this for next time, but it's kind of a short segment. Let's do privatizing the Information Awareness Office. So we were just talking about PAM, these early predecessors created by DARPA. Now we're showing the link from public to private. So we're going from this project into this other thing being created. So it says, while it seemed that the IAO and its controversial projects had been offed by a responsive Congress, it would emerge just a few years later that TIA was never actually shut down despite being defunded by Congress. Not only were various aspects of TIA and other IAO projects covertly divided among U.S. military and intelligence agencies, but the core surveillance software that TIA had planned to wield began to be developed by the private company now known as Palantir, with considerable help coming from John Poindexter himself, as well as the CIA's chief information officer at the time, Alan Wade. Wade had notably been one of Poindexter's main allies and collaborators in TIA prior to its defunding by Congress. In 2020, Unlimited Hangout detailed the numerous parallels between TIA and Palantir and noted the following. At the time it was formally launched in February 2003, the TIA program was immediately controversial, leading it to change its name in May 2003 to Terrorism Information Awareness, in an apparent attempt to sound less like an all-encompassing domestic surveillance system and more like a tool specifically aimed at terrorists. TIA program was shuttered by the end of 2003. Same month as the TIA name change, with a growing backlash against the program, Peter Thiel incorporated Palantir. Thiel, however, had begun creating the software behind Palantir months in advance, though he claims he can't recall exactly when. Thiel, Karp, and other Palantir co-founders claimed for years that the company had been founded in 2004, despite the paperwork of Palantir's incorporation by Thiel directly contradicting his claim. Also in 2003, apparently soon after Thiel formally created Palantir, arch neocon Richard Pearl called Poindexter, saying that he wanted to introduce the architect of TIA to two Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, Peter Thiel and Alex Karp. According to a report in New York Magazine, Poindexter was precisely the person whom Thiel and Karp wanted to meet, mainly because their new company was similar in ambition to what Poindexter had tried to create at the Pentagon, that is, TIA. During that meeting, Thiel and Karp sought to pick the brain of the man now widely viewed as a godfather of modern surveillance. In addition to the above parallels, there's also the added fact that Palantir's supposedly novel selective revelation functionality and alleged privacy safeguard, as well as Palantir's immutable log concept, are not novel at all and were clearly borrowed from TIA. It is also of note that Palantir's software stemmed from an anti-fraud algorithm called Igor, created by Thiel and Max Levchin at the company they co-founded, PayPal. In a controversial conversation with Charlie Rose in 2013, Levchin explained that when we were working on security and anti-fraud measures at PayPal, we collaborated with every imaginable 3- and 4-letter agency, and those were some of the best, most productive relationships I've had as a business person. Yeah, I'm sure it is. Oh, this entity that completely exists outside the free market and just completely off coercion. Oh yeah, me as a businessman, I love this. Yeah, no shit. When they're on my side. While Poindexter's own role in the privatization of TIA into what is now Palantir was recently noted, the CIA and its chief information officer, Alan Wade, were also intimately involved in privatizing TIA. As Unlimited Hangout also reported, soon after Palantir's incorporation, though the exact timing and details of the investment remain hidden from the public, the CIA's In-Q-Tel became the company's first backer, aside from Thiel himself, giving it an estimated $2 million. In-Q-Tel's stake in Palantir would not be publicly reported until mid-2006. The money was certainly useful. In addition, Alex Karp recently told the New York Times the real value of the In-Q-Tel investment was that it gave Palantir access to CIA analysts who were its intended clients. A key figure in the making of In-Q-Tel investments during this period, including Palantir, was the CIA's chief information officer at the time, Alan Wade. The CIA would continue to be intimately involved with Palantir well past this point. I mean, let's be real, we've talked about this enough. CIA and Palantir are basically one and the same. In fact, they became connected to such an extent that it's perfectly reasonable to argue that they are, for all intents and purposes, a CIA front company. Yeah, we've mentioned multiple times, Thiel is literally mused that, like, it's not really so much that that they're a front for the CIA, but that the CIA is a front for them. For instance, following the In-Q-Tel investment in Palantir shortly after it was incorporated in 2003, the CIA was Palantir's sole client until 2008, and as Alex Karp has stated, CIA analysts were always the company's intended clients. One of Palantir's top 2 engineers at the time, Aki Jain, recalled making hundreds of trips to CIA headquarters between 2005 and 2009, where the CIA tested and tweaked Palantir's products. Palantir has since gone on to become a contractor to all 18 U.S. intelligence agencies and, of course, much more. So it's the CIA masquerading as some public or some private entity. At the same time that Peter Thiel was devising the privatization of TIA with his fellow Palantir co-founders, John Poindexter and Alan Wade, he was also suspiciously present in the apparent privatization of yet another DARPA project called LifeLog. LifeLog at DARPA was overseen, I think it's the one that later becomes Facebook, was overseen by Poindexter's close friend Douglas Gage, though it was not housed under the formerly Poindexter-run IAO office as TIA and PAM had been. LifeLog aimed to build a database tracking a person's entire existence that included individuals' relationships and communications, their media consumption habits, their purchases, and much more in order to build a digital record of everything an individual says, sees, or does. LifeLog would then take this unstructured data and organize it into discrete episodes or snapshots while also mapping out relationships, memories, events, and experiences. As Unlimited Hangout noted in 2021, the information that LifeLog gleaned from an individual's every interaction with technology would be combined with information obtained from a GPS transmitter that tracked and documented the person's location, audio-visual sensors that recorded what the person saw and said, as well as biomedical monitors that gauge the person's health. Critics in mainstream media outlets and elsewhere were quick to point out that the program would inevitably be used to build profiles on dissidents as well as suspected terrorists. Combined with TIA's surveillance of individuals at multiple levels, LifeLog went farther by adding physical information like how we feel and media data like what we read to this transactional data. One critic, Lee Tien of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, warned at the time that the programs that DARPA was pursuing, including LifeLog, have obvious easy paths to Homeland Security deployments. At the time, DARPA publicly insisted that LifeLog and TIA were not connected despite their obvious parallels, and that LifeLog would not be used for clandestine surveillance. However, DARPA's own documentation on LifeLog noted the project will be able to infer the user's routines, habits, and relationships with other people, organizations, places, and objects, and to exploit these patterns to ease its task, which acknowledged its potential use as a tool of mass surveillance. The cloud of scandal that has enshrouded TIA and PAM soon came for LifeLog. For instance, Stephen Aftergood of the Federation of American Scientists told Wired at the time that LifeLog has the potential to become something like TIA cubed. Unlimited Hangouts reporting the topic continues as follows. The firestorm of criticism of LifeLog took its program manager Doug Gage by surprise. Engage had continued to assert that the program's critics completely mischaracterized the goals and ambitions of the project. Despite Gage's protests and those of LifeLog's would-be researchers and other supporters, the project was publicly nixed on February 4th, 2004. DARPA never provided an explanation for its quiet move to shutter LifeLog, with a spokesperson saying only that it was related to a change in priorities for the agency. On DARPA director Tony Tether's decision to kill LifeLog, Gage later told Vice, "I think he'd been burnt so badly with TIA that he didn't want to deal with any further controversy with LifeLog. The death of LifeLog was collateral damage tied to the death of TIA." Fortuitously, for those supporting the goals and ambitions of LifeLog, a company that turned out to be its private sector analog was born on the same day that LifeLog's cancellation was announced. On February 4th, 2004, what is now the world's largest social network, Facebook, launched its website and quickly rose to the top of the social media's roost, leaving other social media companies of the era in the dust. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the main reason why Facebook was able to so quickly rise to the top of the social media roost was thanks to the early involvement of Peter Thiel and his close associates in the company. As noted recently, Thiel had been working to privatize TIA as Palantir with his co-founders as well as John Poindexter, Doug Gage's close personal friend, the very same year he became involved with Facebook. Unlimited Hangout's previous reporting on Facebook origins revealed that Thiel, as well as Facebook's first president, Thiel associate Sean Parker, were critical to Facebook's commercial success. Facebook's success, in turn, has also proven critical to the success of Palantir. A few months into Facebook's launch in June 2004, Facebook co-founders Mark Zuckerberg and Dustin Moskovitz brought Sean Parker into Facebook's executive team. Parker, previously known for co-founding Napster, this is a guy I think they got Justin Timberlake to play in the movie, later connected Facebook with its first outside investor, Peter Thiel. As discussed, Thiel at that time, in coordination with the CIA, was actively trying to resurrect controversial DARPA programs that had been dismantled the previous year. Notably, Sean Parker, who became Facebook's first president, also had a history with the CIA, which recruited him at the age of 16, soon after he had been busted by the FBI for hacking corporate and military databases. Thanks to Parker, in September 2004, Thiel formally acquired $500,000 worth of Facebook shares and was added to its board. Parker maintained close ties to Facebook as well as to Thiel, with Parker being hired as a managing partner of Thiel's Founders Fund in 2006. Thiel and Facebook co-founder Moskovitz became involved outside of the social network long after Facebook's rise to prominence, with Thiel's Founders Fund, we talked about that yesterday, becoming a significant investor in Moskowitz's company Asana in 2012. Thiel's long-standing symbiotic relationship with Facebook co-founders extends to his company Palantir, as the data that Facebook users make public invariably winds up in Palantir's databases and helps drive the surveillance engine Palantir runs for a handful of U.S. police departments, the military, and the intelligence community. In the case of the Facebook Cambridge Analytica data scandal, Palantir was also involved in utilizing Facebook data to benefit the 2016 Donald Trump presidential campaign. Facebook has also proven extremely beneficial to another Thiel and national security state-linked company, the facial recognition firm Clearview AI, whose facial recognition database was largely compiled by scrapping images off of the social media platform. Given Thiel's intimate involvement in resurrecting controversial DARPA surveillance programs from the early 2000s, i.e. TIA and LifeLog, it is important to note that Thiel and his network were also intimately involved in the creation and success of two later efforts to resurrect the policy analysis market, PAM, as we've been talking about earlier, the prediction market platform Augur, and more recently prediction market company Polymarket. So this seems to be the life cycle of these things. The CIA comes in, they have this idea of some sort of total surveillance tool of some sort. They workshop it, they try to make it happen, and then after a while it dies, and then they revitalize it under totally not the CIA, some other so-called private entity, and here we are. That'll be all we cover for today. If you guys are still enjoying this in the next episode or in the next part, if there is a next part on the next episode, so sound off in the chat, the comments. Do you enjoy reading into this? Are you bored already? But yeah, in the next episode, we'll get into Shane Copland, the founder of Polymarket. And then we'll probably the next maybe get into what's the other segment? And then get into courting the Tealverse, so kind of more getting into the connections to Teal and others and some of the other characters. So if you're still interested in this, I still think there's a fertile ground to till here or whatever. I'm interested in digging more, so you guys let me know in the chat if you want to as well, and if so, we will bring you along on that discussion next time. But with that, let's roll the chat one last time, say our last good mornings, our goodbyes, and all the like. And then I have an outro for you guys that we'll play. But with that, let's check in on you guys, see what we got. Rumble at 6 million seems pretty high. Says, wait, so you're saying they're paying Tate $271,000 a year? Okay, I get the joke. I was confused for a second. Good morning, JMS, saying Derpa. Northside says, holy shit. Good morning to you, Northside says, Jose is paid by Teal. The gay list makes sense now. Hey, the outro today is a promotion for Palantir. Times have gone hard. So now I'm throwing my ass back for Teal as well. So it happens. You know, you got to pay bills. It is what it is. You know, I'm all deep boosted. It's not so easy in the private market. So we're going to the public-private market, guys. I'm not quite ready to completely give up my libertarian leaning, so I'm just going to play the stupid libertarian and go, herder, it's all the same as it's all just free market, bro. Like whatever. Yeah, so I'm taking money from Teal. We'll show you the newest we're going to show you the newest generation of drone warfare here in a moment for the outro. It's a paid thing from Teal, you know? So it is what it is. I shouldn't joke too much. I'm going to get sued. To be very clear, it's a joke. All right, what's we got? Here's Qbert calling me ugly again. So I know ugly when I see it, and when I see ugly, I call it out. You know who you are. We'll appreciate it. All right. At some point, I just think he's projecting. So, what else we got? Aggressively agreeing says, at what point, if not too late, do you believe an uprising against the intelligence apparatus happens? 5 years, 10 years, what's the breaking point? I mean, I guess it depends on what that means. Like, I don't know. I think the state has kind of masterfully pulled off this trick with like these so-called uprisings just, you know, serve to fuel them. So really at the end of the day, like as much as it like pains many people because they want to have this like feeling of doing something, kind of pulling away from the thing, you know, kind of what many people would see as doing nothing is actually, you know, kind of counterintuitively what I actually think needs to be done here. So I don't know at what point something happens for the intel thing. I don't know. We'll see. Good morning, Evan Griffin says, what's up, El Galison? Not much, just finishing up. You'll have a little bit of catching up to do. Also brought to you by Dawn. I flipped it around just for you and kept it there, John Black, just for that. So you caught it. Today's TMD is brought to you by Dawn. The best thing to clean your chicken with. Make sure to clean your chicken before you cook it. Tom says, I don't think there's a breaking point. I think it'll wither away and the intelligence apparatus will fall apart along with society. I think you're correct. Like kind of, there's been a number of political theorists who've kind of characterized the competition between the free market and the state as this kind of like, you know, this, you have innovation and then you always have predation that's trying to like, or maybe not innovate. The producers and predators, I guess would be the good way to put it. There's different, people have used different terms, but essentially you have the producers like actually creating stuff and they kind of blast way past the predators and the predators are usually catching up. So it's really one of those things it seems like we got to innovate our way out of, really. Keeper says, if I weren't so ruggedly handsome, I might agree with your projection assumption. All right, guys. With that, let's go ahead and get out of here. Like I said, I do have an outro for you guys in a second, but we got to do the plugs. For those who like what I'm doing here, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. You can find the show on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers, and Twitter as well. On Twitter, that's at Tower Gang Jose. Everywhere else, it's the No Way Jose podcast. And if you want to support the show the best way you can do that over the Patreon, or you can do it over here, this QR code right here, or at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. Either way brings the same place. Over there, you get a whole host of perks. You get access to early episodes. I do about 1 to 2 of those per week. Supposed to have Matt Wolfson on tonight. We'll see. We had some technical issues last week. Hopefully, we can figure that out. Keep about 3 to 4 behind the paywall at any given time. Give you guys access to ad-free RSS feed, the Telegram, the pre-show, the post-show, and video calls on me and Austin's weekly live call-in show, Already Dead, which went out last night. We did that. Those are on Tuesdays, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And also, a big shout out to the highest level of my Patrons. A big thank you for their support in my previous posts and tagging at Learn Toad, also at Brigadies, at ZVK, at _ Zeal, Tim Tuttle, at John Cleeble, big fan of the show, Tormay, at Wayne Taggers, Money Cover Kids, No Free Lunch, Jack, Mark Vestibule, Jacob Motorguy, Biblical Anarchy Podcast, and John Black, you beautiful bastard. Giving a shout out to the handsome short king, manlets and lanklets, or I don't know what we'd call John Black. It was lanklets, like the term for like skinny tall. And then you got manlets, or like short, stout, or just generally short, I guess. Do you consider tall guys who are thick also a lanklet? Because I feel like lank implies skinny, right? I don't know, whatever. There must be a term for the big boys. So we make a good... We would do well in battle, John. I go high, you go low. But yeah, Keeper says happy for me, all 5'2". Hey, there's 3 more inches in there. Don't forget about those 3 inches make a huge difference. They really actually do. But with that, guys, like I said, I do have times are rough here. You should support the show, unless you want me to be subsumed by the teal verse, as everyone else seems to be doing in my line of work, these days. But to kind of start off, I did want to let you guys know. Apparently, we have now animated. I guess, I don't know what we call this. It's not really like a trailer. I guess it's a promotion, but it's weird that they promote these things when they're like selling to the government. So you're like, if anything, it's more like threats, which is it's kind of creepy, but so, okay. But so we're doing animating, but apparently this isn't the first time. This isn't like animation in the public-private world, in this way, like 2D animating, like drones. This has happened before. I want to introduce you to somebody named Emily Eusis. She's a pretty cool character. I see on Twitter show up my feed every now and then. This is one of the creators of the Will Stancil Show. I've never watched it ever. I see it show up my feed sometimes, but it is endearing. It's kind of this like fantastical. Many people who might know who Will Stancil was. He became a major figure in the ICE protests a while. He's kind of this weird, like, kind of goofball, but like weirdly wholesome. He's like kind of like a center left type. This kind of really believes in like the idea of democracy and like a wholesome chungus type thing. Well, there's a lady named Emily Eusis. He like really takes himself way too seriously, but like in a weird, endearing way. He's just such a great character. I really loved the Will Stancil coverage during that time. Had a lot of fun with that. I think of it fondly. But Emily Eusis, capitalized on this meme of Will Stancil, made a whole show out of it. Very much like for those who've seen like the Mike Tyson show that shows up in like Adult Swim, kind of in that same vein, kind of like goofy. And you'll get the idea. But Emily Eusis actually beat Palantir to the punch. So I figured before I show you our outro, a promotion to get my $7,000 from the CIA. I mean Palantir. Or is it Palantir or is it Anduril? I guess this time, but whatever, same fucking thing. Yeah, Anduril. It's one of his little fucking subsidiaries. But yeah, Emily Eusis did it first over on the Will Stancil Show. Here you go. That right there is Alex Karp, a beautiful villainous rendition of him. I think this is exactly how Alex probably sees himself in his own head. But big ups to Emily Eusis. Who knows? Maybe the show is trash. If I was someone who's more into TV, I definitely probably would watch it. Maybe I want to one of these days check it out. Sound off in the chat if you like it. Either way, the idea is hilarious. But like I said, I gotta pay the bills. So with that, here is 2D animation, a little bit of a visual for our coming dystopian futurarchy, as we've been talking about in our Polymarket coverage. But here you go. I'll see you guys tomorrow, probably. If not, probably Friday. But I should see you guys about tomorrow around 11 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you hit that bell, do all those things. That way you can see when I am going live. But with that, we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.